The rain poured down in heavy sheets across the wide, open plains, turning the dirt road into a ribbon of mud and sorrow. She stood there, clutching the baby tight against her chest, her thin dress soaked through, her hair tangled and dripping, her shoulders trembling, not just from the cold, but from the weight of everything she had endured. The baby whimpered softly, pressing its tiny face against her neck, as if trying to hide from the storm. She had nowhere to go, no roof to shield her, no family waiting at the end of the road. The world had taken everything from her, her home, her security, her hope, and yet she refused to let go of the child in her arms. That baby was her last reason to stand, her last reason to keep walking, even when her feet were blistered and her spirit was breaking. Far off in the distance, the faint sound of hooves cut through the downpour. She lifted her head, her vision blurred by rain and tears, and saw a figure riding slow and steady against the storm. A cowboy, broad-shouldered, wrapped in a long coat, a wide-brimmed hat shadowing his face, guiding his horse with a calmness that seemed impossible in weather like this. At first, she thought she was imagining him, a trick of the storm, a desperate hope her mind had conjured up. But then the horse drew closer, its breath steaming, its powerful body slicing through the mud, and she realized he was real. Her knees nearly buckled at the sight. She wanted to call out, but her voice cracked, lost in the wind. The cowboy pulled his horse to a halt just a few feet from her. His sharp eyes scanned the fragile woman standing in the rain, her arms wrapped around a child, her whole body shivering like a broken reed in the storm. He saw the exhaustion etched into her face, the strength it must have taken just to remain upright, and something stirred in him. Their boys weren't strangers to pain. They knew loneliness. They knew hardship, but there was something about the way she clung to that baby, as if it were the last piece of her soul, that pierced through even his hardened heart. "You'll catch your death out here," he said, his voice steady, carrying warmth despite the rain beating down on him. She couldn't answer. Her lips trembled, her throat tight with sobs, and only tears rolled down her face as she shook her head. The cowboy dismounted in one smooth motion, boots sinking into the mud. He stepped closer, extending a hand, not demanding, not forceful but gentle, like an anchor being offered to someone lost at sea. "Come on," he murmured, his voice quieter now, meant only for her. "Let me help you." For a moment pride and fear clashed within her. She didn't know this man, didn't know if he was savior or danger. But the baby stirred, letting out a faint cry, and she knew she couldn't refuse. She had walked too far alone. She had endured too much already, and so, trembling, she placed her trust in the stranger before her. The cowboy slipped off his coat and draped it over her shoulders, shielding both her and the baby from the worst of the rain. The warmth of the heavy fabric wrapped around her like a promise, a reminder that maybe, just maybe, she didn't have to fight this storm by herself anymore. Then, with a strength that seemed effortless, he lifted her into his arms, careful not to jostle the baby. Step by step he carried her to his horse, the mud clinging to his boots, the rain plastering his shirt to his chest. But he moved with purpose, with certainty. He placed her gently onto the saddle, positioning her so she could cradle the baby safely, then swung up behind her in one practiced motion. His arm came around her, firm and protective, while the other hand held the reins. The horse shifted under their combined weight, but the cowboy steadied it with ease, clicking his tongue softly as they began to ride. She leaned back against him, too weak to resist, and for the first time in what felt like forever, she felt safe. The rhythmic thud of hooves beneath them, the solid strength of the cowboy at her back, the shield of his coat around her shoulders. It was as if the storm had lost some of its power. The road ahead was still uncertain. She didn't know where he would take her, didn't know what tomorrow would bring. But for the first time in months, maybe years, she dared to let herself hope. Hope that there was kindness left in the world. Hope that she wasn't condemned to suffer alone. Hope that maybe, just maybe, the cowboy's arms could carry her out of the darkness and into something new. As the horse pressed forward through the storm, she closed her eyes and let the tears fall, not of despair, but of release. And in that moment, the cowboy's jaw tightened. his gaze locked on the horizon, as if silently swearing to himself that he wouldn't let her fall again. Whatever pain she carried, whatever battles lay ahead, he had found her in the rain, and he wasn't about to let her be swallowed by it again. This wasn't just a meeting of chance. This was fate, weaving its threads in the most unexpected storm. Two broken souls, a woman clutching her child and a cowboy hardened by life, now bound by a moment of mercy that might just grow into something far greater. And as they disappeared into the distance, the storm raged on, but it no longer mattered. Because when a cowboy lifts you onto his horse, you're no longer fighting the world alone. You've found strength, protection, and perhaps the first spark of a story that could change everything. So if this story touched your heart, if you felt the storm, the pain, and the hope rising from the ashes of despair, don't let it end here. Hit that subscribe button, join this family, and be part of many more powerful stories that remind us what it means to endure, to hope, and to love against all odds.